one thing that I see going on today in today's world, and we see it all the time, and it begins to bug me quite a bit, is people identify with their problems. People identify with this word that they throw around these days called trauma. People identify with ailments they have, whether it's anxiety, some sort of mental health, some sort of this, some sort of that. And we're at this point where it's almost cool to have some sort of deficiency, right? It's almost like part of the norm that people battle with mental health or people battle with this. And I'm not saying none of that exists. What I am saying is that people seem to lean into or lean on these ailments that they have or these shortcomings they have, and they almost use this as a crutch to be able to use an excuse of they didn't make it quite as far as they wanted to be, right? They already come up with excuses of why they're not going to achieve certain things because of X, Y, and Z before they even get started. People, I'm not saying everybody, right? People have this thing these days in this, I'm not going to say generation because in this current time there's multiple generations like millennials, Gen Z, Gen X, whatever the new one's called, right? I don't know what the most recent one's called. But there's this victim mentality that's begun to be contagious. And I want to talk against that for a little bit. And this topic for today's podcast is be a victor, not a victim. I've gone through a lot of things in my life. Everything from before the military, growing up, just like everybody has. I've had family problems. I've had, problems with relationships, i.e. friends. Now, I'm not talking about just like significant other. I'm talking about with friends, with teammates, with coaches. I've had friction points growing up in the Marine Corps. Went through a bunch of stuff with fellow Marines. Went through, and I'm not talking about just traumatic things, right? I'm talking about just friction points, right? And some things hold more weight than others. My dad passing away, getting divorced, going through things in and out of the Marine Corps, going through things with family, really heavy things with friends, losing friends for one way or another. And I get asked this quite a bit by people. And my mentor from back in the day used to tell me that, man, you've been through hell and back quite literally. And the thing is I don't really look at it that way. And I don't know if that's what sets me apart from some people. I'm not sure if it's just a gift I have to be able to just kind of keep going in the face of hardships. And yes, I equate some things to be me being able to stay on track with goals and long-term, things I'm trying to accomplish with discipline. But it's also, there's a mindset of this happened to me and I'm not going to let it redirect my life. I've seen some people who are on the come up. They have great potential, and we've all seen it with athletes. We've all seen it on TV, a celebrity or your favorite athlete. They kind of got it all going on, and then something happens in their personal life that has nothing to do with, whatever they're involved with, and it totally derails them. I know people who, they say they struggle with this and this and this, and their life's never going to be out of a cycle of just depression or sadness or failure or this or that. And I get annoyed. I honestly, sometimes I want to be really empathetic when I talk about these things, but I think sometimes people need to hear a more direct telling you in your ear, that you need to pick yourself up and you need to keep going. Look, I'm not saying you shouldn't mourn. I'm not saying, if you fail, you shouldn't feel sad. I'm just saying don't let it define you. If you let things that happen in your life define you, you are a victim. And the victim mentality will get you nowhere. If you fail at something, identify why you failed. Is it a bad idea? Poor execution? Poor planning? If something in your life happens to you, realize that there's some circumstances you cannot change. There are some things that happen to you that you couldn't have prevented. However, you may not be able to change the hand you were dealt, but you can change the way you play them. It's a poker analogy, I guess, for those people who play a lot of poker. I do not. I understand the game of poker. But what I'm getting at here is there are things that happen in your life, and instead of letting that be part of your identity, let that just be part of your story. Don't let these negative, bad, traumatic things that happen to you be a part of your identity. Let them be a part of your stepping stone of, hey, even though I went through this, I was still able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. Let that be part of your testimony. Let that be a part of your story on your come up to success. And whatever field you're in, this applies to everybody in every situation. Whether you're in some sort of transformation journey, you're on a fitness journey, you're on a business venture, you're trying to start a business, run a business, grow a business. If you're just trying to kind of pick your life back up together, don't let things that intrude on your life begin to derail what you have set your mind to. And that's a lot easier said than done. The show's called It's Not Complicated. It's not called It's Not Difficult. Okay? The show's called It's Not Complicated because I'm trying to help people break down this idea that things are overly complicated, right? Because a lot of times it's really simple things, like we're talking about today is mindset. Be a victor, not a victim. It's a mindset thing. It's a really simple concept. However, it's not always easily executed. One thing that I can say, and I already kind of mentioned this, to walk out a victor mentality is, despite going through these traumas, these events, these friction points in your life, you need to maintain course. And to do that, you need to establish discipline, right? And the discipline isn't established in a tough season. It's established in an easy season and exercised through, i.e., executed, i.e., done in a difficult season. And the easy season is a time for you to build those things. Life's going pretty good. It's not time to take your foot off the pedal. If anything, it's time to floor it. Pedal to the metal, right? When it comes to personal development. It's a lot easier to get better at something when there's not outside pressure to get better at something. Okay? Because even with my clients, for those who don't know, if you're a first-time listener, I have a business one of my businesses is I help coach people one-on-one. It's called Simple Disciplines Program, where I help coach people one-on-one to establish a personal discipline of excellence and routine and create a system of success in order for them to maintain the long-term goals. And I do this in a season in their life that is not particularly difficult. Yes, they have a lot of stuff going on, but they're not going through something traumatic. Yes, they might be going through some transitions. They might be trying to, a lot of my clients are raising kids while also growing a business while also working, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's not like something traumatic happened and then we're trying to work through it. Usually, it never really ceases to happen. About 6 to 8 weeks, somewhere in that time frame in the program, something happens to make them really exercise through those things we've practiced for the first 4 to 6 to 10 weeks or whatever it may be. And then they really get to see the fruits of their labor of working on personal discipline when those crazy times come up, when shit hits the fan in their life, when their life goes crazy, when they lose a loved one, when something happens with their kids at school, when, it could be various things that happen that just make your life more difficult and hard and really hard to keep going. That's when they get to exercise that thing that they've been working on, and that's that personal discipline. You don't want, right? Okay, this is what, looking back to COVID. Okay, when COVID first happened, I lived in Southern California, and I'm not a prepper. I'm like, you see on TV where I have a bunker and all these things. I have always just had things on hand in case something happens. Anything from a tsunami, earthquake, living in California, here in Texas now where I live, in case of tornado, some traumatic weather. I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean to say traumatic weather. I meant to say dramatic weather. Something happens to where I have just, food on hand in a storage. I have, fresh water on hand stored. I just have like the necessities, right? And when COVID happened, I remember I wasn't too concerned about the virus of COVID, me getting sick, because where I lived was, pretty densely populated in southern Orange County. And I remember being very aware of my surroundings, because when I went to the store, I was just trying to get, we just needed something to cook for dinner, and I was just getting a couple of things. I was literally, I think, getting some steaks and some random things, just to cook and have for dinner. And people, man, when COVID was first happening, like in March of 2020, people were kind of going crazy. They're kind of losing it. People were buying things off the shelves. I know the whole toilet paper thing. I already had a bunch of toilet paper. I wasn't trying to, stock up on toilet paper. But people were buying a bunch of canned food. They were buying a bunch of, crackers. And I remember it was kind of funny. People weren't buying fresh produce and meats for whatever reason. They were buying canned food. It was a panic because they're not prepared. And I was calm. I was fine. I wasn't worried. I was on edge from the people around me. I literally got in almost 2 different fights in that same store visit that I'm explaining in the parking lot. I wasn't concerned about my well-being because I was already prepared. And I didn't have to go through a panic. I didn't have to fight, in grocery store lines for unperishable foods or non-perishable foods. I didn't have to fight people to get things that I needed to protect myself. I didn't have to fight with people because I was already prepared, right? And just noticing the stark differences of how the prepared people were for COVID and the unprepared people for COVID. That same analogy applies in your life. Are you prepared as a person? Are you prepared mentally, physically, with your daily routines? If something were to happen in your life, are you still able to get your critical tasks done every day? Are you still able to push through those difficult seasons? And they don't always have to be, a loss of a loved one or whatever. It could just be a really, 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 really busy season at work. It could just be a really, really, really busy season at work, and you have kids, and your kids are out of school. So now your kids are home, and you don't know what to do with them, and your house is crazy, and you have to get your kids from point A to point B. Right? Like, it doesn't have to be something really dramatic or traumatic. It could just be just a really crazy season. Are you prepared as a person to go through that? So being prepared, meaning you are working on your personal development in the easier seasons for those hard seasons. Because those hard seasons are going to come. Your life isn't always going to be easy. Your life isn't going to always be cush. Your life isn't always going to be just rainbows and butterflies. We know that. You go through seasons in life. So while you're in the easier season, while you're in the rainbows and sunshine season, are you prepared for the dark times? Are you prepared for the busy seasons? Are you prepared for when your life goes amok? So work on your personal development, i.e. your discipline, your self-education, building up, your prayer life, your physical fitness, all of those things. So then when the busy season comes, all of that just becomes part of your daily routine, and you're able to still kind of keep a base, progression even in those busy seasons. I've had a client before where she was trying to lose weight. She was just trying to get her health back. And she was also trying to start her own business while she was working. And then she ended up starting her own business. She ended up actually making money doing it, but her life was so crazy, her health started to suffer. Because when she came to me, she was already in the process of starting this business. She was just kind of like, she was already getting started. And so when all that became busy, she's like, "Oh, well, I didn't go to the gym today. Oh, well, I messed up eating." And I'm like, "Listen, part of all of what we're doing here is to apply the discipline doesn't go out the window just because you're busy, right? If anything, you need to stick with the discipline." And then I had another client just recently, and this is a really proud coach moment, okay? So, she's been going to the gym. She's been starting her own business. She's been raising 4 kids on her own. She's been doing all of these things. And big shout out to her. She's a rock star, right? And she was just really tired one day. And she was just asking me, she was like, "Hey, listen, this past week, I've been going to the gym, but do you have tips in how to not be tired and like just kind of get motivated to go to the gym? I've been going even though I don't feel like it." And I said, "Stop right there. What did you say?" She said, "I've been going to the gym even though I don't feel like it." I'm like, "That's discipline. We did it. You did it. You went a week. You went to the gym every single day before you had your crazy schedule for the day with the 4 kids and your own business and all these things, and you did it anyways, even though you were tired, even though you didn't feel like it. You still set your alarm." And keep in mind, this person that I'm talking about, she was the worst at hitting the snooze. And that was like the biggest fight we had at first. Because one of my things is in the Simple Disciplines program is there's no snooze. When your alarm goes off, you get up. And we literally went from her waking up at 8:30 after setting her alarm at 7. I'm not exaggerating. She would hit the snooze for an hour and a half to she just wakes up at 6 and boom, she's out of bed. And boom, she's at the gym by 6:45. And I was like, "Listen, I'm freaking proud of you. I don't have any tips for you to not feel tired and feel motivated because the motivation's going to fade sometimes. You are not going to have motivation. You are not going to feel like going to the gym every single day. You're not going to feel like running your business every day. You're not going to feel like going to work every day. You're not going to feel like, bettering yourself every day. But when you do it in despite of those things, that's when you're seeing the fruits of your labor and practicing personal discipline in the easy season." And so I was like, "No, I don't have any tips for you because you're doing it." And that actually did motivate her realizing, you know what I mean? Like it was like a self-motivating thing for her because she's like, "Oh, I did do it even though life was crazy. I did do it even when I don't feel like it." And we've all heard the term, "You're tired, do it tired." I tell my clients, "Listen, you're going to get tired. This is going to happen. That means you're doing a lot of great things." Because we address sleep. That's one thing about my clients is I try to get them to the point where they're getting restful sleep, right? So I'm not just saying stay up all night, grind all night. That's not what the program is about. It's about setting up your life, and sleep is super important. I'm a big advocate of sleep, okay? So if I know my clients are getting enough sleep and they say, "I'm just tired, I'm exhausted," I'm like, "Okay, you're going to do it tired. Okay, you're going to do it sad. Okay, you're going to do it even though you don't feel like it." And that's part of that victor mentality and not a victim mentality, right? It's the mindset. Be a victor, not a victim. Don't succumb yourself to tiredness. Don't succumb yourself to failure. Don't hinder yourself just because you don't feel like doing something. I talk about this on the show all the time. Your motivation is going to fade and sometimes fade fast. You're not going to wake up every day just super motivated. And I'm going to be honest, I went through a season just this year where I wasn't motivated at all. Not motivated to have clients, not motivated to go to the gym. I was just tired, but I did it anyways. And then through that, I was still able to make progress. I was still able to have my clients, have success. I was still able to have success in my business. I was still able to have success on the football field. I was still able to make progress, learning, things like that. continuing forward, pushing yourself in spite of what's going on. That is a victor. You know, when my dad passed away in 2019, he died to suicide. Okay, it's part of the story. I don't mention it every day in the podcast, but it's something I talk about because it's part of the story of me I was in the Marine Corps still, and I was training to play football. Okay. And when I told my dad in 2017 that I was gonna get out of the Marine Corps and I was gonna try to play college football. He thought it was crazy, but he wanted me to do it. He was like, "Man, it'd be really cool to see you play on Saturdays." And so I was training. I was training while I was on deployment. I was training before deployment. I got told that I was insane for even training outside of, training for football outside of training for the Marine Corps. Like I was motivated. And I just kept my eyes fixed on putting the helmet on just one more time. Right? That was an everyday thing. Every single day I trained. I don't think I took a single day off ever, unless I was like actively on a mission in the field, okay, or something like that. Unless I was like actively doing Marine Corps infantry stuff, okay, because I can't, do sprints or drills while I'm doing training. You know what I mean? Like that's like training my guys and kicking indoors and raiding trenches, being in a fighting hall, all that kind of stuff. I'm not able to do that. But in the times when we weren't doing all that, I was training, morning and night. I would lift weights, all that kind of stuff in the morning, and then I'd do drills at night. Okay. So, I'm doing this for 2 years. I do this like combine thing, and it was also like a 7-on-7 tryout, and all the Marine Corps football teams were there, and I was trying to get a spot on a Marine Corps team that actually wanted me. And to play football on a Marine Corps team, to get the pads on before I got out of the Marine Corps, before I went to college, try to get some film, get some practice in, because I hadn't played football in years, right? So I did this combine, and then I want to say about a month or two later, my dad passes away. And I had to go from California. I had to go home. And, it was a really tough time for me. But I kept remembering, like, well, my dad said it'd be really cool to see you put on the helmet one more time. And even though my dad passed away, I didn't want that to derail my whole life. I didn't turn to drugs. I didn't turn to alcohol. I didn't turn to things to ease the pain. I leaned into the pain. I mean, in some ways, I kind of, as far as like the grieving goes, I didn't probably do all of it correctly. But for the most part, like I didn't let it derail. Like, sure, I was sad. Sure, I'm not saying that like it didn't affect me. I'm not saying that. It did affect me. But even when I went home dealing with the arrangements for my dad and all those things, I was still getting up in the morning. I was still going to the gym, and it was actually not nice. It was actually like helping me to have that. I wouldn't call it a distraction, but it had that some sense of normalcy or whatever, while all that craziness was happening. So I was still getting up and training. I was still, getting up and at least by bare minimum going to lift weights. And I mean, lifting weights is good going through some sort of grievance anyways. But, I was just trying to have some sense of normal for me and keeping my eyes on my goals while still dealing with all this. And it was difficult. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. And I bought a one-way ticket to Texas because I didn't know how long I was going to be there. My Marine Corps leadership knew the situation, and they called me every single day, say, "When are you coming back?" I'm like, I really don't know. And I get a message. I was planning on staying a couple of more days. There was just some things I needed to take care of, right? When a parent passes away, I was in charge of quite a bit of stuff and entrusted in quite a bit of stuff with the arrangements. And I remember I got a message from a Marine Corps team that was there. And when I was at that combine thing I was just talking about, that like tryout thing, I got talked to by a lot of teams that were there, but there was a team I wanted to play for, specifically, and I was kind of waiting for a message from them. I felt like that would be the team that would line me up for the most success. I felt like, just you kind of get a feeling, right, of like where you could be more successful. And so I was in Texas. So I went from California to Texas. So I'm in Texas dealing with my dad's funeral, all these things. And I get a message from the guy that was coaching the Marine Corps team I want to be on and say, hey, I got your number and people were telling me about you at the combine. I want you to come play for us. We practice in he said the day of the week, and it was in 2 days from the day I got the message. And I read the message, and I actually typed out, I won't be able to make it. My dad just passed away, blah, blah, blah. But I was thinking, I was like, part of this whole process I've been going through, part of me training for years to get back into football shape, for years, because keep in mind, I was in Marine Corps shape. I was in Marine Corps infantryman shape. I was not in football shape when I first started training in 2017. So 2019 is when this is all happening. I'm still in the Marine Corps. I get that message, and I literally typed out the message. I won't be able to make it there. I'll probably be back next week. Here's the situation. And I typed this on message, and I didn't send it. I erased the message, and I said, I just sat there for a minute. I erased the message, and I said, okay, I'll be there. Thank you for the opportunity, blah, blah, blah. Probably said something cheesy like that. And I bought a ticket that night to leave the next morning to make sure I'm there and ready. And in the grand scheme of things, I probably did not need to be there for that first practice. They would have probably understood the situation. But I felt like my dad, because my dad was one of the ones that instilled discipline. My dad was one of the ones that would, like, well, if you're going to do this, you need to do it 100%. There's no half-assing anything. And I felt like my dad would have wanted me to be there. And yes, I wanted to get back to a sense of normalcy. But I was thinking, I was training all of this time to get this opportunity. I don't think that my dad would have wanted me to miss this opportunity because I've been training for it for so long. Right? So I went, and I was so glad that even in the midst of all that happening, that I was preparing my body, that I was preparing my mind, that I was strengthening my mind in that easier season before everything crazy happened with my dad. And then fast forward, I played on the Marine Corps team, and then I played for a junior college in California, and now I'm at West Texas A&M, and all of it was part of my story. All of it is part of my testimony. See, many people in this situation, they would, and the same thing that I'd gone through, it would have derailed them because they weren't building themselves up. They would have leaned into the traumatic experience, and they would have used that as a crutch, as an excuse to not keep pushing themselves. And this is a really far out there, and this is a really deeper topic. But I'm just telling you, you have those goals for a reason. And if you're a Christian listening to this, you've prayed about those long-term visions, those long-term goals for a long time, and you have them for a reason. Some people say it's destiny. I say it's God-given. God gives you your talents and your gifts. God gives you a vision. God lays something on your heart for you to accomplish, and he doesn't want those crazy seasons to derail you. Yes, sometimes you make a pivot if something happens in your life, but you don't quit. Some people make a pivot, but it's really them quitting. And you in your heart know the difference, whether you're pivoting or whether you're quitting. Don't let situations dictate your life. You overcome these situations and you dictate your life. You be the victor, not a victim. I'm going to go ahead and end on that today. Thank you so much for listening. And if you've enjoyed the podcast at all, if you've ever listened to an episode and you've liked it, if you liked this episode, go listen to other episodes for number one, but also hit that follow button on Spotify, share it with your friends, copy link, post on your Instagram, tag Simple Disciplines. If you want to message me directly, I have a question about the topics we had today, you can message me at Simple Disciplines on Instagram. Also, I just learned this literally 2 weeks ago. I have quite a bit of followers on the Spotify, and I get messages, hey, I didn't see you post an episode. Well, you have to hit that bell, apparently, for it. I don't know if it'll notify you or send you a push notification. I just know it'll at least put a little blue dot when you open up your Spotify that, yeah, there's a new episode uploaded. So make sure you hit that bell so you know when a new episode is posted, and that way you can keep up. And, this show is for free. I do this show that you listen to it for free. It costs me money to do this show. So the only thing I ask in return of a payment is for you to share the show, follow, rate 5 stars. Unless you don't think it's a 5-star worthy show, then don't, because I like some honest feedback. So far, it's 100% 5 stars. And I don't know if people are lying or if the podcast is that good. Okay, so share it with your friends. Also, there is now a YouTube. It's nothing fancy, but if you like watching clips, I upload little shorts on YouTube. You can look up Simple Disciplines on YouTube. Message me on Instagram at Simple Disciplines. Also follow on Instagram. All right, everybody, really appreciate it. See you in the next one. Peace.